What's up, everybody? I'm Rick,
And I'm Anna.
and welcome to our bucket list channel, a channel in which we try to realize the goals and dreams that are on our bucket list. Today, we're putting the pin on one element of one of those goals, or one of your goal, rather,
Right.
which was for you to play 101 games.
Yes.
And today, we're going to be talking about one of those games, the games you finished. Life is Strange.
Right, the third game
Yeah.
on my list.
So this video is going to be a review of Life is Strange, the game, by you. So the way we're going to do this, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. I was there while you were playing, so this is simultaneously, I'll give my opinion on some of the things, but really we want to hear your thoughts because you were the one playing, making the tough choices.
Okay.
So let's dive right into it with the usual question. Did you like this game?
I did. I found it very interesting. It's very, complicated. Not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of, mentally what it asks of you. I feel like it has an emotional impact,
Definitely, yeah.
Most of the games that I ever played in my life were you wouldn't have that much of emotional investment, but in this one you kind of do.
Let's talk about that emotional investment. Would you say this has more to do with the story or the characters? What were you emotionally invested in?
I feel like it's more just the way the game is played. It's me making those decisions, and the outcomes can be different based on the decisions that I make.
Yeah.
It's not just gameplay decisions. It feels more like not like real life decisions, because it's not real life, but it has that kind of an emotional impact.
Yeah. It's more personal because you're choosing what the character will be doing.
Exactly.
And in a sense, in every game you're choosing what the character does, but
I feel like in other games, when you choose what your character does, still the end would still be the same.
Yeah.
Like if your character dies or something happens, you just go back to the last save and continue from there. It doesn't actually have an impact but in this game, once I made a choice, that choice just opens a new branch into the game, and I can be playing the game this way or that way. It's very different, and the end is not the same.
yeah.
The result is not the same.
So this is, like we've been talking about it, a game where you make choices. You play the role of Maxine, and you're trying to save your friend and your town from impending doom.
And as many people as possible.
Yeah. With a newfound power, which is to rewind time. So I wanted to talk about that element, the rewind time mechanics, which is the central mechanic of the game, really, because the rest of the time you're more talking to other people. But in terms of gameplay, this is the main element. What did you think of that? Was that enjoyable to do? Did it become a chore at some point? You just...
It was interesting. I feel like sometimes I was forgetting that I should do that or that I could do that. For example, there were some instances where I missed a photo, for example. But I didn't, I wasn't really thinking, I can just rewind and then take the picture. I wasn't thinking about it that much.
Yeah.
But whenever I was in trouble or someone else was in trouble, I knew right away, rewind. And I can fix it.
But for some of the elements in the background, there were also tertiary characters in the background who sometimes needed help, and you don't always think about I could rewind and help.
Yeah, exactly. I missed quite a few of those.
Yeah. So let's talk about the story itself. This is a story-heavy game. You've made mention a lot of times as we were playing that it was like watching a movie.
Yeah, a lot of it is like watching a movie. I'm just sitting back while the characters are talking. And
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of cutscenes. It's cutscene heavy. Did you like the story?
Yes, I did. I found it interesting.
What did you like about it? What element?
I think that what was most interesting was the mystery. Until the fourth episode,
Yeah.
I didn't actually know what was going on, what's the mystery. Or I thought that I had an idea of what it is, but turned out that I didn't. I was wrong. So then at the end, when I find out the truth, it was very surprising. It was shocking, really. And I like that. It's if I watch a movie like this, I want it to surprise me like that,
Yeah.
So I think that they did a very good job putting this story into the game, or rather turning this story into a game.
And of course, this is a game in which you make choices. The story changes depending on your choices. Did you ever felt at some point that like, oh, this is not the story that should be happening? You know, like I'm failing at this.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah?
A lot. I felt that a lot. Really, like I was saying at the 4th episode, I was thinking like, I feel like I failed this game. Like, is there a failure mode? Like at the end of like you just play the whole game and at the end they tell you you failed.
No.
Like, because that's what I had in my
Yeah.
head. Well, yeah, I found out in the end that that's not how it works. But that's how it was in my head. I was like, oh my, I feel like I've made all the wrong choices. I feel like I've done like all the bad things.
And did it feel like that wasn't supposed to be the story, or rather that this is another story? This is the one I'm experiencing, because that's how you're supposed to feel now.
No, obviously, because I'm playing the game like this.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like, well, maybe the game gives you the option to fail,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm failing. But it also felt a lot like real life, I would say, in that sense, because think about it, when you make a mistake in real life, you can't rewind time, right? But in the game too, even if you can rewind time, you can go back to a choice you made like in the previous
while ago,
episode,
yeah. Mm.
or even like in the beginning of one episode, to change it again. Like you can't do that anymore.
When you didn't know what the consequences were going to
Exactly.
be. Yeah.
Exactly. So at some point you see the consequence of your actions, and you're like, I wish I hadn't done that.
Mm.
You know, it feels a lot like real life.
Yeah. That's kind of the fun of the game too.
I guess, yeah.
The story hinges a lot on the characters and expect you to get attached to these characters. The big choice at the end has everything to do with how attached you are or not with some of the main characters. So, did you like these characters?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, I think the characters were very interesting, and they did a very good job at. It's almost like, as I was saying, it's a lot of just watching the characters or like listening to their dialogues, and I feel like they develop those characters almost like a movie character. Like they have, very different personalities and they behave in a certain way, and it gives you hints, and at the end or later on when you find out, a secret or something like this, you're like, oh yeah, obviously, because they did that or they said that before. I should have guessed it. I should have known, And if a game can manage to create characters like this complex, like I'm impressed. Maybe other people are not. I don't know. It's the first time I'm playing a game like this. So maybe if you play a few more different games like this, you're not impressed anymore. But I was very impressed by that.
Regardless of how many movies you've watched, you can always be impressed by good characterization.
True. Yeah.
So, now I want to go a bit more into detail. So we're gonna be spoiling a couple things. If you guys watching this are not don't want to get spoiled, I invite you to leave now. But I want to talk specifically about episode 5, which is the end of the game, the end of the story, the last episode. First, generally, what did you think of that episode?
I feel like that episode was like had the most amount of storytelling compared to all the other episodes. And I feel like in that episode, there were instances where I wish I could make a choice, or I wish I could make another choice that wasn't actually available. And it was the only episode where I felt like that, really.
Yeah.
No, not really. There was one more instance before, in episode 4, I think, where again, I would have made another choice, but it wasn't available.
Oh, towards the end of episode 4.
Right, towards the end of episode 4, yes.
So the ending generally you felt like was pushing you in a certain direction.
Yeah, a little bit. And I felt like that took away a little bit of that feeling of I'm really controlling this.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I did feel like, okay, this is the way the game is supposed to go. Like I can't really... I don't have all those open ends anymore.
And even with the final choices of saving Chloe or saving Arcadia Bay, when watching, because we've watched, you did one choice, but we watched the other one on YouTube. When watching both ending, there is this feeling that, like, there's obviously one ending that the developers wanted. you know,
Yeah.
that is more fleshed out than the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Like all that epilogue
Yeah.
for the ending that the developers had in mind is obviously much more detailed. It's longer, first of all.
Yeah.
And it has more elements added to it, whereas the second ending
Feels kind of rushed. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
okay.
It's like, okay, this is how it ends.
Which kind of gives credence to what you were saying before of like, oh, it kind of feels like maybe that's a fail state. Like maybe I wasn't supposed to do this because one of the ending feels so much more fleshed out than the other
But
one.
I did like the other ending too, though. The
Saving Chloe.
Saving Chloe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how it ended. I liked it because I thought, as I was like thinking, making my choice, my thought, like in the back of my head, was if I save her and I let everyone else die, she will hate me. But that's not how it ends. Like in the end, you know, they just live together and they stay together as friends, and that's great. I liked it. It gives a different kind of hope, you know.
There is some gameplay element added to the last episode too that I felt like maybe might be more divisive. At the end, they add this whole dream section where you have to be stealthy, where everything is rewinded. Like it goes on for a while. What do you think of that?
That was super long. Like I thought I was never gonna finish it.
Yeah.
It felt long, but then when I actually looked at how much time I spent in episode 5, it was much shorter than episode 4. I finished episode 5 in about like 3.5 hours, if I'm not wrong. And episode 4 took me about 5 hours. I think it's about like this. So in the end it was shorter, but it felt so long.
Yeah.
It felt never ending. And I think it's because of like the way the sequences, you know, that happen.
Found each other, and then there's a long stealth section where you have to sneak up.
Oh yeah, that was so difficult. I feel like that was the most difficult one to do.
Which is not something you do often in the game. You do it one time when there's the pool.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like where you have to like hide and
But
sneak
even
around.
that was way shorter. Here
Right.
it goes on for much longer.
And this one was much more complicated. It felt like a labyrinth. Like
Yeah.
you actually have to find your way through a labyrinth.
Would you? I'd rather this dream sequence wasn't there.
I mean, it was interesting for what it was. I feel like if it wasn't there, they would need to replace it with something else. Because the point of the dream sequence really was to remind me of Chloe. But those also, I feel, serve to remind me of other people that were involved in the story. So that at the end, when I have to make my choice, I have all of these people and thoughts in my head.
Yeah, but do you think that could have been done with some type of flashback?
Possibly, but it wouldn't have been that interesting and you wouldn't have actually played into it. Like, I would have rather it be something maybe shorter. But I did like the element, like the difficulty that it added to the game.
So, were you satisfied once you did your final choice and you got your ending with how the whole game went? You said at some point you felt like maybe you're failing the game, but now looking back on it, you finished the game, you did that final choice, were you satisfied? Did you feel like all of your action had consequences?
Yes and no. All of my actions had consequences in the sense that with every action, I learn new things. Like depending on how I talk to certain people or, you know, how I act in a certain situation, I learn something new. But the ending, whichever ending you end up choosing, basically erases
a lot of that.
Yeah. So even if you choose the ending where you would save Chloe, and technically nothing changes, like whatever you did still happened, everyone is dead.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter anymore. Like it doesn't matter who were you nice to or who did you help or who did you whatever. Like there's no one left.
And if you save Chloe, then you go back before you made any of those choices.
If
you save Arcadia.
Yeah, exactly. Then you go back before you made all of those choices and you just, like, nothing happened. It's like nothing happened. It's just in your memory.
And so, are you disappointed by that?
Not really, no. No, why would I be disappointed?
because you made all these choices, you know, you have the feeling
Yeah, but
that
they
there's
had-
going to be an
But they
impact.
had the importance of like showing me the way, you know, to that end point.
Review.
What did bother me though was that I didn't get all the pictures.
Oh.
I really, because when I started playing, I was so like all over the place. With it being the first time that I'm playing a game like this, I didn't really know what I was doing. It's not that long, it's only 5 episodes. So by the time it ended, I think the only episode where I got a lot of the pictures, except for one, was the 4th episode. In every other episode, I only got like 2 or 3 of the pictures, which is really not a lot. And I was thinking when I finished it that I wish I could just play it again to do all the tasks, you know, all these like take all the pictures and do this and do that. But it wouldn't be fun because I know the story. Even if I decide to play it in a different way, I know the main story. So like all my decisions will be based on knowing what the end like point is.
Yeah.
So
Anna, this is the second game you ever finished.
Yes.
So this was your first time playing that type of game. There are a lot of those games similar to this where you make these choices and you follow a story. Are you interested? Would you like play
yeah,
more of these games?
I really like it.
Um,
I like the idea of like following through to a story rather than, I mean, I guess in a lot of games you follow through to a story actually, but in this one it's different. It's more of like an expose, you know, like a story that's being told to you.
but yeah, so final word, you enjoyed the game?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
I did. I enjoyed it.
So that was your third game out of your list of 101. Who knows what the fourth game is Animal Crossing, but what the future after that will
Right.
hold. Stay tuned to this channel to see what she decides to play whenever she decides. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, comment in the comment section below and tell us what you thought about Life is Strange, and have a nice day.